Hello, welcome to this presentation about 2019, an astrological preview or forecast, though not really a prediction, only an analysis for tendencies for the next year according to Western astrology. My name is João Medeiros, I'm a Portuguese astrologer, and I'd like to wish you a very happy new year of 2019. And I hope that you enjoy this short presentation about the main transits and astrological factors that we should take into consideration while interpreting the new year. So thank you so much for your attention. And so to start with, if we want to look at 2019, we should also know what happened during the year before, 2018, because some events already started to take shape, and because if you don't know which techniques were effective, astrological ones I mean, in the last few years, how can we really have a good idea about the new year? So in politics, what happened in 2018? Trade war, many unstable positions of Donald Trump, the delay and the difficulty of achieving an agreement with the Brexit, the meeting of the two Koreas, the death of the Saudi journalist, the difficult situation in Yemen, the Yellow Jacket event or revolt, also the condemnation of the former president of Brazil and the election of Bolsonaro, a right-wing candidate. In finance, although a bit discreetly, we can say that the fintech companies achieved a more wider use, and the technology companies of web and finance applications. We also saw records in the stock markets, especially of Apple, which is also always a company that is very enhanced during Mercury years, when we will see why 2018 was really a Mercury year, and a decline of the stocks, the worst performance of stock markets after the crash of 2008, and also a big volatility of exchange rates of the pound especially, and dollar and euro, and yen of course. In science, many developments, like the many missions to Mars that were successful of the United States, also some missions of China, like landing on the dark side of the moon and launching an endeavor to reach Mercury, and also the SpaceX success of utilizing space rockets. Also the largest bridge in the world that was inaugurated in between Hong Kong and Macau, China. Also the modification of DNA of embryos from a Chinese scientist, which was a very controversial event, and the strange object Oumuamua, that was for the first time considered to be by academics and universities to be most likely of alien intelligence origin. And the first hydrogen train built by Germans, which is also nice news from the last year. In the environment, of course, many earthquakes and volcanoes, fortunately not so deadly in terms of victims, though a bigger frequency of these kinds of events. And the big fires of California and warning from the United Nations and the alarm that is sounding, and we remember also David Attenborough, a notable scientist, making also wake-up calls. So in the environment there was a worsening of the situation. In society, probably the most mediatic event was the rescue of the Thai boys of the cave, of the underground, and the fire of the Museum of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, the wedding of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, the death of Stephen Hawking, and other events that were also memorable. So in the top events of 2018 for the world, we can say that these events were probably the reasons why where 2018 will be in the history books. Trump's instability, the meeting between the Koreas, the trade war, which started to make a big change in the markets, the election of Bolsonaro, tech space developments, famine in Yemen, the murder of the Saudi journalist, climate warnings, rescue of children, and the situation of Brexit. And it's interesting to see the last ingress of the Sun in Aries, because this is one of the ways that astrologers analyze the next year. They don't consider the year to begin on 1 January, but the astrological year to start in spring, when the Sun reaches Aries, normally at 21st March. And so the last ingress had very particular situations, like the Sun making a 90 degrees aspect or square aspect with Mars. And traditionally, this ingress, this kind of pattern was always or most frequently associated to either financial stress or financial crisis, or natural catastrophes, or death of big leaders. And because the earth element was the most dominating one of 2018, it would be likely to say that this would be a year of kind of a big competition in terms of markets and finance, and probably a decline in the markets. However, the presence of Jupiter making a trine to the Sun would protect that events of being too sharp, and also the fact of, in the ingress of the USA, the Moon was in its strongest position, which is a Taurus. So there were mixed testimonies on this year of 2018 that didn't finish still, because this astrological year is continues to take place until March 2019. So this climate of a bit of a competition between companies of different countries is still a bit on next month. For the next for this winter, if we see the ingress for the United States, it is not so difficult to forecast instability in the White House and also in the markets, because of this position of the Moon, ruler of the ascendant, squared midheaven and squared Mars. So also Saturn in the descendant, like in the first ingress. So this is a pattern that symbolizes this very tendency for the first 3 months of 2019, because the USA are the leaders still of the world, the leading economy in some ways. This will obviously affect other countries. So for 2019, what can we say? How can we see, astrologically speaking, the main features of this new year? And if we see where the social and transpersonal planets, in what signs and elements they proceed or they are in, it's easy to say that Earth will be the dominating element of the next year. So Earth, when the main planets are transiting in Earth signs, collectively there are themes of commerce, finance, banking, currencies, production, technology, ecology, and these are normally the main themes that are more talked about, or where people worry about more. For instance, when we had the euro birth, it was like an Earth dominating year. When we had the financial crisis, it was also an Earth dominating year. So likewise, 2018, 2019 will also be a year governed or ruled by Earth elements, which is very interesting. So personally, if we speak at an individual level, we all should get more into Earth, which means getting more practical, organized, know how to plan our life, and to do savings and to enjoy more and care about Earth, and so be a bit more ecological and organized. Also take care of our own work and our own health, which is also public health, a theme of a subject of Earth. And the main planets that are here we have in Portuguese, the planets are written in Portuguese because it's my native language. We'll have a conjunction of Saturn and Pluto that is not perfected still. It will only be perfected in the next year of 2020. But historically, this connection has been associated to either wars or depressions. And so it is likely that we see a decrease of the economic revenues of companies, and some climate of a bit of more dense or tending to a contraction, and also a climate of austerity and a right-wing energy tendency, because Saturn in Capricorn and Pluto in Capricorn are very strict, demanding, discipline, and is typically a right-wing energy or combination. However, the curiosity of this year is that the opposing energy, which is Jupiter in Sagittarius and Neptune in Pisces, which is a socialist and very hopeful combination, is also very, very strong. So we have these two energies of left and right, of hope and progress and tolerance, but also the energy of intolerance and rigidity. They have the same weight. So we'll have, I think, in my opinion, a split more, a cleavage more clear between right wing and left wing, between extreme right and extreme left, between capitalism ideals and socialism ideals, and at the same time more hope in the midst of austerity, which means that the one that will win will be the forces, political forces or internal attitudes that can cope and achieve a balance between these two energies, being responsible and at the same time being tolerant and optimistic. So to believe and to do, to make happen, to have a strong belief in human rights, in human values, and at the same time a strong belief in practical achievements. Okay? So it's not just to dream, but to dream and make happen. So to be adventurous, optimistic, free, and at the same time practical and realistic. Can we achieve this compromise and this harmony between these two energies? This is the proposal for all of us, I think, in the next year. In terms of transits, Mercury will be retrograde as usual 3 times, and this time it will be in March, July and November in water signs. So this is a proposal to, in this month in particular, to review and to reassess, reprocess our emotional life, our inner life. As usual, Jupiter will be retrograde near April and Saturn near April until July. So this 4 months will be months more likely to retreat and to recover things from the past or matters from the past. Also many eclipses like usual, this time in Capricorn or Cancer, which is interesting because Saturn is also very strong in this year, and not only because Saturn in Capricorn, but because we'll have eclipses in Capricorn, which will ask for Capricorn structures like companies and banks and governments to rebuild themselves. And another way to watch to analyze the next year, we should take into account that a cycle of 3 years or almost 3 years of Saturn in a new sign. And so Saturn entered a new sign in the end of 2017 and to enter a new sign of Aquarius in 2020. And so if we want to know what are the energies behind 2019, we should not forget the proposal of this transit that in the past was always, but always, very defining for the collective history. So when we had in the past transits of Saturn in Capricorn, we always had building walls or destructing walls, walls also of financial crisis or financial power. So like for instance the construction of the Berlin Wall and the decision was made during Saturn in Capricorn, but also the fall of the Berlin Wall, the big crash of 1929 was also a Saturn in Capricorn ingress. And we have a curious event, which is the combustion, Saturn near the Sun, but also near Venus. Saturn being near the Sun, it's like we call it astrologically a combustion, which means there are cycles of great fires or destructions, or explosions or droughts or heat waves. So this will be likely a new tendency, but also a tendency of women or agreements or treaties being made or unions between countries. So this is more a peaceful combination than a war combination. Every time that Saturn made an ingress square to Mars in the last century, we had a great war starting. So this will not be the case. On the contrary, the proposal will be for peace to be achieved, but through destruction of financial and state resolutions, which means, to be more concrete, that if a wall of Mexico and Brexit, which are walls, are being built during this cycle, either two chances are likely. First, if they achieve to have this resolution, it will surely or most likely be hugely costly in the future. But the main probability, in my opinion, is that will be nearly very difficult or impossible to achieve without a big cost, and especially because the heart of Venus is also taking charge, meaning we have to reach an union and an agreement between in the human race. The last time we had Sun and Venus together with Saturn in an ingress in the 20th century, we had the peace of the World War taking place. But also we have the planet on fire, and so this is also a chance for the governments to get closer to an agreement about the pollution and climate change, or else we will feel more the heating and the fires. Another cycle that is very important to look at is the ingress of Jupiter in a new cycle. In this case, most time in 2019, Jupiter will be in Sagittarius. And if we look at the ingress of Jupiter in Sagittarius, if we would only look at Jupiter, we would say it will be an optimistic cycle. However, we have an interesting combination of the Moon conjunct Jupiter square to Mars. And so this is a combination that asks for changes and for the people to make their view and to shout out loud what they want, especially because of the square to Mars. It's like the people being angry and going to the streets and wanting to rebel. So this cycle already started in November with the Yellow Jacket rallies, and it is likely that in other dimensions, in other countries, because of other matters, people will go to the streets in 2019 a bit angry and wanting their rights to be reassured. So this will be a political cycle, in my opinion, very likely. It is interesting to note that this ingress is calculated, this particular one, to the United States, and the Moon is rising, which is a strong indicator of also in the United States, either women or the people achieving a bigger status in this year. And also, and of course, we have to see the ingress of the Sun in Aries, an energy that will unfold especially during the 12 months after the end of March. And when we see these ingresses, the most important thing to look at, to see it globally, is the closest angle that the planet is making to the Sun. And the planet that wins in this case is the Moon, that is making like a full moon, an opposition, and applying opposition to the Sun with a very strict orb. And so the Moon will be, in my opinion, according to my research and investigation in the last century, it will have a Moon feature very strong, but also Jupiter, thank God, because it's a planet that has also always been connected to progress and democracy and human rights or space developments. So what will be a Moon year, we'll see, but globally it will be a year of uncertainty, of a bit of clouds and doubts, because the Moon is up and down, is wide and short, and it is especially an opportunity for the people, artists and women, to express themselves more politically or mediatically in terms of the news. So this will be, in my opinion, in many ways a year for the people to make their point of view more strong, either by elections, either by strikes, either by rallies or other kind of events. Not only in the USA, but in the whole world. In the USA in particular, because the Moon is in the first house, it will be also likely. For China, the ingress is much more interesting, I would say, and positive, because Jupiter is very dignified in midheaven, which is an indication that for some reason, either by the space success or other kind of reason, China has a spectacular opportunity to make their position strong in the world. Also, to see another theory to interpret the next year, or the years according to astrology, is to follow the Magic Star theory that says that each astrological year is ruled by one classical planet. The same ruler every 7 years is ruling. The year starts not in beginning January, but at 20 or 21 March, but this influence starts to grow 2 months prior to that. We follow the reverse Chaldean order, which means that after Mercury comes the Moon, and after the Moon comes Saturn, and so on. And so you will see now what is my view, my opinion about this cycle, that was adapted from the primary solar cycle of the prophets, a Kabbalistic cycle that which origins are not so clear, okay? But this is my view of this cycle that contradicts the view of many other astrologers that see that there is a break of cycle after 2016 and a break of disorder. And so many astrologers will say that this will be a Mars year, but I don't agree with that. I consider that this cycle of 7 years has no interruptions whatsoever. And so we would have Venus years, Sun years, Mercury years, and Moon years. And so 2019, like 2012, 2005, 1998, will be also from this theory point of view, not only from the theory of the Aries and Ingress, will be a Moon year, not a Mars year. And so in years of Mars, the main kind of events of years of Mars or Mars years were wars, financial difficulties, crashes, explosions, terrorism, were most typically the events of years of Mars. In the years of the Sun, new leaders took power, and generally they were happy years of some hope and celebrating many cultures and many races together in sports, for instance. In Venus years, normally democracies won, and there were the end of wars, like the end of war of the Afghanistan, for instance, or the independence of countries, or political movements for democracy. And economically, there were very good years. Students, they marched, and so on. And the last year of 2017 of the movement Me Too was a Venus year. Mercury years were years where technology were the main news and the main happenings of these years. Not only technology, but space developments, environment ones, and internet and transportations, and artificial intelligence and internet, and so on. And worries about the environment. Records of temperatures were also common in Mercury years, like the last year of 2018, that was a Mercury year. 2018 was a Mercury in Earth year, in my point of view, because of main planets were transiting in Earth signs, and because according to this view, Mercury was the general ruler. So like in the 2016, it was a year of the Sun in Fire, the year where Trump was elected and the personality of the year according to Times magazine. In 2017, it was a Venus in Fire year, and the Me Too movement was the personality of the year, and the main movies were movies where women were starring, like Wonder Woman, which is a Venus in Fire. And culturally, Mercury, we can see that also Mercury in Earth was most likely the ruling planet because of the Saudi journalist. And interestingly, the fire in terms of the mundane astrology is connected to white people, and the Earth with brown people or brunette people, like Arabians, or from Arabian origin, or not black but dark-skinned people. So the Saudi journalist, for instance, the Taiwanese rescue, and especially the big hit in the movies, Freddie Mercury, which is a hell of a coincidence because of the name. Freddie Mercury was resurrected completely in a year of Mercury, himself being from Iranian origin and having Mercury in Earth in his own chart. That is why because of the strongest planet of his chart, he said he would be baptized as Freddie Mercury. So it's very interesting how symbolically these coincidences happen. So, in theory, what to expect from a moon year. The next year will be a year of the moon. So we have to see what happened in the past in moon years. And what happened is the rise of great artists that appear in the public eye, like Chaplin, Elvis, the former player Pelé, series like Star Wars and the Mickey Mouse. So creative years of big artists, of great artists, and big speeches of political rights like the one of Gandhi or Luther King. First woman in space, Monica Lewinsky scandal, Angela Merkel taking charge as Prime Minister, and the wedding of Grace Kelly. So years where women had more visibility and more power also. Unfortunately, years of famine and of many changes, of political changes in African countries or Asia, and especially also in China, and also climate events, destructive climate events were also common in moon years. So in the 7th year cycle of the moon, of the Magic Star theory, we have the birth or spotlight of great artists, political speeches for peace and human rights, more visibility and power of women, highlight on families and children, famine, natural disasters, and more focus or more important events in Africa, Asia, and China. So most likely those will be also tendencies of the new year. It's very, very interesting that not only from the point of view of the 7th year theory, but from the point of view of the Aries in Ingress, Sun and Aries Ingress point of view, as I said before, this is also a moon year. So in both theories, we have the moon ruling the next year. So it is a double moon year on Earth, in Earth. And as we can see in this Ingress, the moon is Virgo, which is an Earth sign. So if we take two different theories, we'll get to the same conclusion, that moon and Earth will be the dominating energies of the new year. And so what happened in years where the sun entered Aries, connected to the moon as the closest planet, and we'll see, or one of the closest planets, and we'll see the same things that we said before in the 7th year theory. So what happened was Mandela was elected. We have the wedding of Lady Diana, the closest angle of the sun made to the moon in the 20th century. The Beatles achieving a big success. The end of wars, of World War II. The independence of Angola, Malala getting a Nobel Peace Prize, Margaret Thatcher getting to in charge as Prime Minister. We had also the legalization of the pill and of the Viagra, which is very interesting, and the Big Brother TV success also connected to this moon or public or people kind of events. So this is a confirmation of the symbolism that the old astrologers said about the moon: connection to the people, to artists, and to the women, to babies as well. So what events are already scheduled for 2019, independent of what we see astrologically? We have the decision to do about Brexit, that would most likely be a postponing of the date or a new referendum because of the moon energy. Elections in Indonesia, elections in the European Union, elections in India, elections in Israel, other events like the Emperor of Japan will quit and will get out of he will resign as emperor and take and pass the testimony. And also elections in Portugal, many elections, and how Trump will will behave in this year, where people and women especially and artists can be a much stronger opposition than in the past. How will he cope with that? Individually speaking, how would you want to be 2019? What are your resolutions? And so I will make some conclusions and some suggestions about the next year, taking advantage of Saturn in Capricorn, Jupiter in Sagittarius, and Uranus in Taurus. Don't waste time, Saturn in Capricorn. Don't waste time with stupid things like social network. Be organized with papers and bureaucracies. Plan your activities and goals. Be more ambitious and professional. Be more optimistic. Learn more and travel more. Study more. Diverse your investments, which means to not put all the eggs in the same basket because of Uranus in Taurus. Vote, because this is a moon year, so vote without being influenced by fake news, because in the last years, last elections, the fake news and social media had a very strong influence. So please be critical about it. Be creative, respect women, respect family and children, and fight for Mother Earth will be also proposal, in my opinion, for the next year. I don't usually do forecasts for the 12 signs because I think it's a bit too shallow and not technical. We have to know the whole chart of a person to understand more clearly the propositions or the proposals for the next year. Even though I would say Sagittarius people with the Sagittarius rising or the Sun in Sagittarius, of course, they will have they will feel most probably or more strongly the transit of Jupiter in Sagittarius. So of course they could have more opportunities to solve problems that were on for many years. Leo, but depending on its beginning or not. And as a challenge, Cancer will have the challenge of many oppositions, and Libra of many squares to Saturn and Pluto, which will have a bigger challenge internally speaking. So to get on and end this presentation, I would say that because it's the year of the moon held by Jupiter, I would say it will be a very remarkable year in terms of opportunities of progress for the mankind, also for artists to create more beautiful and perfect performances, but also for them to make political statements. Also for women to do that, more visibility of weddings or not royal weddings, but famous people, elections, referendums or democratic movements, more attention to highly populated countries, uncertainty of climate and natural phenomena, more worries carries with famine and starvation could be also tendencies because of being a year of the moon, more strikes and rallies also because of Jupiter transit. And because it's a very strong year of earth elements. The spotlight will be in news regarding trade, finance and banking, especially the first 4 months. Cryptocurrencies and exchange rate volatility will also be very likely. More attention on earth, food and public health issues. Ecology and technological innovation also matters that will be focused in 2019 more than usual. Because we had Saturn in Capricorn combust and conjunct to Venus, we could also expect, like in the last year of 2018, extreme temperatures and weather, building walls with great financial costs or impossibility, like the wall of Mexico and Brexit, more likelihood of big fires, and more news about euro and banking reformation. And because of Jupiter in Sagittarius, tendency to political tension, because this ingress is tense of the moon and Mars, and rallies for more rights on work, equality or climate. Uncertainty and clash between right and left, more migrations will also be very likely. So my last suggestion for the next year is for you to be happy and to enjoy the year of the moon in Earth, or of the Earth moon. Thank you so much. If you want to understand a bit more of my work, please join my website. Even though it is in Portuguese, I will be very happy to get some information about yourself. Thank you so much.